All right, a bonus episode of the Newport This Week video podcast series as we continue to dissect communication and potential collaboration between Newport and Middletown public schools. I'm Bill Bartholomew. You can find an episode with Newport Mayor Charlie Holder that we recorded yesterday on this very same topic. I guess let's do the proper way of doing this, if you don't mind, Colleen, if you want to introduce yourself and explain why you're here today.
Okay, thank you, Bill. My name's Colleen Burns Jermain. I'm Superintendent in Newport Public Schools, and I'm happy to come visit with you today. My understanding is you'd like to talk about the resolution and possible regionalization or any impacts, et cetera. I guess the whole world of regionalization.
Yeah, it's a big world and there's a lot to it.
Yes.
Discussed yesterday. There's a lot more to it than just conversation. Obviously, there's statutory regulations around this with respect to municipal votes, with respect to potential charters. There's a lot more to it. This is not going to happen tomorrow morning if it ever happened in general. But right now, on the heels of a resolution that passed in the Newport City Council, which again, in detail, yesterday's podcast with Charlie Holder has everything you want to know about that. Let me ask you this. How different is the current curriculum between Newport and Middletown, and would there be any impact on a writ large curriculum under any collaboration that would be proposed by the Academic Integration Advisory Committee?
No, not really, Bill, because we do follow a lot of the same curriculum. And as a matter of fact, we're having our first professional development this year with Middletown teachers in October because we do have the similarities in curriculum. We're also writing a grant with them for future coaching for ELA, especially at our younger levels, to improve the literacy and the foundations of just learning overall for our elementary students. So no, we're pretty much, and we have been for many years, especially when we were active participants in East Bay Educational Collaborative. We shared a lot of the practices, what we're doing in our districts, and just, the good teaching and how can we support teachers in professional development and staffing our districts so that we're meeting the needs of our children and our families. So yeah, there's a lot in common.
How do you think the educational path can be improved by Newport and Middletown collaborating together, at minimum at an administrative level?
I think so. From what I understand with the resolution, there is that first step and in administration. So I think the bottom line is, so this is my opinion. It's going to be my opinion you're going to hear right now. Regionalization is a financial discussion. It is about the finances because the way we fund public schools right now does not work, is not working, and is very unrealistic. And in my opinion, as I've been saying in years past, it's kind of crazy for organizations that are like $40, $50 million plus to find out literally sometimes 1 week before the next fiscal year starts what your funding is going to be, because you have to find out what your local is able to support and what the state is able to support. So the financial impact of coming together, both districts coming together, will serve everyone in many ways. First and foremost, the impact as far as how each community pays back on their school bonds. Second way is in which the amount of funding will be available now that the cities and towns do not have to allocate all that funding towards, I'll say, like paying the mortgage back on the bond. So those are some of the things that free it up. And with the declining student enrollment happening not only in the state of Rhode Island, but across the country, we all need to look very hard at how we're going to continue to fund our schools and how we're going to be able to put the best supports in place. I do believe together we can be more powerful as far as the implementation of programming, all the way from PK through 12. But again, that's my opinion. I think you need a lot of voices at that discussion. You also have to take into a lot of considerations as far as the changes that may have to be implemented. And you need a plan. And I said this the other night when I was at the council. We need a plan that is very clear to the public what is going to happen. If, as the resolutions states, they want to have these ad hoc committee put together. I do wonder, just in the very basics I know about law, if we are able to have a resolution that impacts what another governing body outside our own must do or has to do. So I do wonder about that. But regardless of that, I think the intent is great in the sense of we want both communities to come together, have a conversation, and see how we can do better for our children in education. It is, though, at the end of the day, we have to look at how we're financing schools. Is this an improvement going forward if we do join forces using those funds to help provide additional funding towards schools and at the same time help all the community? When you think about it, is it realistic for a district to have one superintendent for the number of schools? Absolutely. That goes across, and whether it's me, my contract ends in 2026. So whether it's me or anyone else, it's very realistic. And I do think it's a great opportunity for both communities to take a look at how do we want to structure this new school system? Look at it as an opportunity, but you have to have a multi-year approach. Start with administration. Then what's the next step? Are we starting to look at programming? Do we need to, in my opinion, it's always the early years. If you're going to make an investment, make it at the early years. And that PK through 2 grade level is so important to building the foundations and the abilities and confidence in our young students in order to do better and to thrive in their educational experiences. The other thing is both communities, we have so many similarities. You have the ML situation as far as in both communities, we have it rising on both sides. We also have the declining student enrollment. We also have, if I'm not mistaken, if you look at our staffing, I know here in Newport, we have the proud privilege of being the district with the most longevity and less turnover in our school district. I think Middletown may be very similar. So is there going to be a point in time when people are going to start to say, I want to go on to a second career, I want to try something else? And what are we going to do about staffing? So that's why I think it's very, very important that part of whatever we do going forward, start with the administration, but then we have to start with what kind of programming, what kind of staffing are we going to need? And that requires bringing in our union leadership and have our teachers at the table with our para educators and other support personnel.
Yeah.
So, but each year we should have a step so the community is really clear. I do believe that when you talk about, I'll say, just coming together for our districts, the first and foremost is most of our, I'll say, parents, at least my experience has been, it's about the little ones. I moved to this community because I want my child to go to this elementary school, or I moved to this community because I want my son or daughter to have the same teacher I had growing up. And so what happens is, I do want to remind everyone that can still happen when you come together because it's busing lines. I worked in districts already where, and I'll take Tiverton, for instance, where I started my career. There, we always had, every 2 years or so, because of either additional housing developments in areas, would have to shift the lines as to how many students can fit in a building. And I do foresee, if you look at the enrollment projections for both communities, you're going to see that that's going to kind of start to decline. So I don't foresee a lot of movement in the first couple of years for our elementary. I do foresee, if we start looking at programming, what are some of the opportunities we may be able to make available to more children between both districts?
Makes complete sense. And kind of in a lightning round format here, and which is, the nature of the beast sometimes.
You're welcome to my world.
Yeah, same here. Welcome to post-COVID digital first era conversation. But we heard yesterday from Mayor Holder that, look, there's conversations going on, but these seem to be, again, just from an assessment standpoint, these seem to be somewhat at the sub rosa level here. It's not as if you said there's any kind of symposium or even unofficial meetings with union leadership and multiple administrations through the different districts, but give the talks that are happening right now between the city and town of Newport and Middletown, respectively. What do you think is going to be different this time around versus other years in votes?
Um, I think there, I think the transparency and just having the honest conversations. Not that they weren't honest before, but I think we were hearing mixed messages about, yes, we want to try to get as much back in our reimbursements and financings. And then at the same time, very quickly, how are we going to do this with educational? What are the educational gains? And then we also had the discussion about the one middle school, one high school. What are we doing here? Especially since we were at the very beginnings of our projects. I think now that, Newport has a state-of-the-art, fully integrated career tech building about to open to the students in September of 2025. I know Middletown has already gone through some of its value engineering, and it's looking at its campuses. They will start their project and put their shovel in the ground, I believe, pretty soon. I don't know exactly when, but I think those conversations are ongoing there. I also am aware that Middletown, unlike Newport, has room for growth. And what I mean by that is there is room for additional housing in that area versus Newport. We do have Coast Guard cutters that are coming into the area from the Navy. We'll probably, I know more about that in April. So there is going to be a need, I do see, for additional students. And most likely, I would say Middletown, because of the housing availability. So how does that play into their new projects as well? The other thing is, having lived through this building project and Pell, if just to remind the voters, we went through two building projects with this bond. We completed the Pell building addition within a year. We got that done under budget and came in. And then COVID, we were in the middle of COVID. That was just starting. COVID hit. Then we hit the high school. Now the high school is just wrapping up at this point in time. Having been through that and having been through the different, I'll just say, challenges that can pop up, I think Middletown is in a good position now with the settling of some point, I'll say, to costs and economy, but I know that also changes as well. But I know that they're prepared to start one of their projects, and I also know they have an elementary. So there's still plenty of time for if some things have to, I'll say, be tweaked, but I don't know if the buildings will need to be tweaked. I think what needs to happen is we have to look at the educational opportunities and what we can do. But I'm going to say again, this is my opinion, and we have to have a very clear, so person on the street understands, oh yeah, we did. And I will say I am supporting and hopeful that regionalization will go on the ballot and we can support that. But I will say that, but when that regionalization vote takes place, we have already educated the public on what it means, first and foremost, for the finances, because it is about, at the end of the day, we're not getting financed appropriately now. We need to help schools in that, but also what are the educational opportunities we can be ready to do, and then take it and at least have a 3-year plan to share with the public on how we'll move forward.
Colleen, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for kind of making your pitch right there at the end as well. And unprompted pitch. Can't get better than that.
Okay, there you go. All right. It was nice meeting with you, and thank you for having me today.
A pleasure.
Take care.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.